Let's start with a pretty wild idea. What if a single thought, just one, had the power to fill the entire universe? Not just be a tiny part of reality, but the very thing that actually contains it. Now, that's not science fiction. It's the radical vision of the poet William Blake, and today we're going to unpack just how powerful that idea is. Here it is, this one line from his Proverbs of Hell. It is so much more than just pretty poetry. Think of it like a blueprint, a declaration that our consciousness is the ultimate reality. Blake is basically saying, our imagination isn't just some little flicker in the dark. No, it's an internal fire, big enough and bred enough to saturate the entire cosmos. And right away, that forces us to ask this really profound question. To just completely flip our whole perspective, what if we've had it backwards this whole time? What if the universe, all its vastness, isn't something out there that we're just a tiny part of? What if it's actually contained entirely within our own minds? Okay, so to really get a grip on what Blake is saying, we first have to understand what he meant by immensity. And trust me, it's not just about a lot of empty space. For Blake, immensity was basically the illusion of a physical world that's separate from us, from our consciousness. It's the world that the horses of instruction, which is his amazing term for rigid, conventional logic, are always trying to measure and box in and control. They're trying to tame the infinite. But here's where Blake just flips the script. He comes back with this stunning counterproposal. He says the real container of everything, of all existence, is what he calls the poetic genius. That's that creative, visionary spark that's inside every single one of us. And that is the source of the thought that's powerful enough to fill everything. It shatters the illusion that we're somehow separate from the world we see. Now, this idea of the poetic genius, it's not just some abstract philosophical concept. It has some really deep psychological implications. And this is important because it totally reframes how we understand our own minds and our place in the universe. You see, he believed that we're all basically operating in one of two modes. We can either feel trapped and kind of crushed by the world, or we can wake up to the absolutely mind-blowing realization that we contain the world. And this slide just lays out those two states perfectly. Over on the left, you've got the trap. That's Blake's vision of a mind that feels small, overwhelmed. He calls it poison from the standing water. You're just stuck, being crushed by rigid rules, the stones of law. But then look to the right, the power. This is the soul of sweet delight. This is a mind that realizes its own gravity is so strong, it can pull the entire infinite right into its center. And here's why that's so critical. For Blake, mental health isn't about adapting to the world. It's about realizing the sheer magnitude of your own mind. So redefining the mind like this doesn't just mess with psychology, it goes even further. It's basically a declaration of war on the entire scientific view of Blake's time, especially that cold clockwork universe of Newtonian physics. He looked at the scientific obsession with mapping and measuring every single thing, with rulers and clocks, and he saw it as a devouring act. He argued that by trying to quantify reality, science was actually stripping the world of its soul, of its spiritual essence. So you get this incredibly stark contrast. For Newtonian physics, immensity was this cold, empty vacuum, something to be measured, and frankly, to be feared. But in Blake's vision, immensity is a living, breathing canvas, just waiting to be filled by the energy of your imagination. In his world, a single thought is more real, more expansive than any physical distance you could ever travel. To make this clash of worldviews even clearer, Blake, being the poet he was, gives us this powerful animal metaphor. It shows the tension between that expansive, creative mind and the limited, devouring one. And here it is, the two forces, brilliantly illustrated. You have the fox. The fox is the devouring mind. It schemes, it survives, but it's always trapped in its own tiny little corner of the world. But then you have the lion. The lion is the prolific, creative mind. The lion doesn't ask for a piece of the world. It stands up and claims the whole of immensity as its kingdom. And this is the key to unlocking that inner lion. The Palace of Wisdom, Blake says, isn't a place you can travel to. It's a state of mind that you have to become. A consciousness that expands and expands until it includes all of space. That's how we break free from what he called the mental manacles of physical limitation.
Now, this whole concept isn't just some personal, navel-gazing philosophy. It has massive sociopolitical implications. In fact, you could say it's a radical call for intellectual sovereignty.
I mean, just stop and think about the power in that statement for a second. If a single human mind is truly infinite, then what right does any external authority, a church, a state, society, have to put limits on it? Blake saw these institutions as casting nets and traps of collective conditioning, all designed to make us forget the infinite power we hold inside. This perspective turns our thoughts from these passive little things into active, world-changing forces. It starts with one person recognizing their own infinite power. That recognition then lights a fire, turning their ideas into revolutionary engines for change. And this is the ultimate payoff. Those forces become powerful enough to reshape the very architecture of our world. For Blake, freedom isn't something that's given to you by authority. It's the natural outcome of a community that gets that one mind can, quite literally, change everything.
So when you pull all these different threads together, the psychological, the physical, the political, what do we really have? What we have is the realization that Blake's simple proverb is nothing less than an anthem for the absolute power of consciousness. It's a declaration that our minds, they come first.
So here are the key things to walk away with. First, your consciousness isn't some small thing inside a big universe. It is the container for the universe. Second, your internal world is more vast and more real than any physical space you could ever travel. And finally, because of all this, your ideas are never just thoughts. They are revolutionary forces, capable of changing everything. The only true measure of the universe is your own poetic genius.
And that leaves us with this one final, vital question. Blake's wisdom is a weapon against feeling small, against being lost in the vacuum of a dead material world. He's handing us the power. So, if your one thought truly can fill all of existence, what world will you choose to create?